All right, so let's take a look at our new lighting objects in Lumion 7. We have an area light and a line light. So an area light is like a rectangle, almost like what I would call an omni-grid in some other rendering programs. And essentially it just allows you to increase the amount of light that's being pushed into a space. And then a line light is exactly what you think it is. It's a linear light with a very even lighting profile. So we're going to take a look at both of them, and then I'm going to show you a really solid trick called node replacement on how you can place lights very, very accurately. All right, so let's hop into Lumion, and the first thing we're going to do is go into build mode, and this is the same model we were working on. And for the line light, or I'm sorry, the area light, really what I've seen with that, my understanding of those is that the best way to place those is you go to your objects, you go to your lights and special objects. You do need to be on place mode, and under lights and special objects, and then click in there and you can see that we have these things called area lights. Now we have an area light and a line light. Okay, so an area light, the best way to place that is just kind of click on your wall. You can always go to your move mode under rotate heading, and let's see, we're going to rotate that guy so it's facing the wall there. And then we're going to go to its properties, and we're going to expand on its width, and we're going to expand on its length. And then I'll go to my move object, and we need to move our light, and so we'll go like this. All right, like that. Now, if I go inside that room, you start to see that, like, if I go to the properties of that again and I dial up the brightness, you can really see that the brightness is coming in. You can change the color if you want to get like a warmer, oranger sunlight coming in, something like that. So that's the idea behind an area light, is to just kind of dial up the light that's coming into the room. Me personally, I don't think that I have a huge use for these, but I can see where in some scenes you just need to kind of force it to be lit. But for this one, we're just going to remove it. I'm going to hit delete and get that area light out of there. Now, the light object that I'm most excited about is the line light. So let's take a look at placing that. So again, I'll go to my objects, go to place mode, and we're going to go to lights and special objects, go back to our library and choose a line light. Now, up here in this cove, I can tell you it's a little tricky to kind of navigate around, and it's pretty snug up there. So I'm going to click to place it, and then I'm going to go to my move mode under rotate. So we can like rotate the heading. Let's see, it needs to face down, and so we need it to be right there at 90. I need to go to my height, and then I need to kind of adjust my height a little bit, so maybe scoot it down. And then again on my rotate, we need to go to rotate, and we're going to rotate its heading. And I said that needs to face down. I was wrong. I actually want that to face up like that. All right, so minus 90. Okay, so there we go. There's our line light, right? And then we're going to go to our properties, and we're going to expand on its width like that, and its length could maybe be a little bit thinner. And then the brightness, you can decide what you want to do with that. But here's the thing, is that, placing these things, I like absolute mathematic perfection. When I build my SketchUp models or my 3D models, there's no 1 inch and 3 64ths. It is just absolute perfection, 1 inch or 10 feet or whatever it is. I don't want to like kind of guess at where this is going to sit. I want it to be absolutely like perfectly centered in that cove, and I want it to be positioned at the right height too. I don't want to have to guess, because then when I copy these things around, it's a little bit tricky to get them all lined up. So let me show you a trick on how you can place these lights in your 3D modeling program, and then we're going to basically do a node placement in Lumion to drop these lights where we want them. So let's go back into Lumion. Let me hit trash this object, and we're going to go into SketchUp. All right, so here's our model in SketchUp, and let me click on our design tab, and we can click on interior and take a look around this model. So again, this is just a very simple SketchUp model, organized and layered. And what we're going to do now is I need to get up into this cove, where I've built that. And basically I need to set some lines up in here so that I can snap to some midpoints. And so the first thing I would do is maybe double click into my ceiling, and let's do an offset. So I use my offset tool, and I'm going to offset by, it looks like the offset is like 2.5 inches to go all the way to the edge of that crown molding. So maybe I want to offset by, let's just say like 1.25. We'll split the difference, okay? And then what I'm going to do is with my select tool, I'm going to double click that piece that I just created, and let's see, if I hit Control X, I can pull that out of that roof, and then I'm going to back out, and then I'm going to paste it in place. So paste in place is under Edit, and you choose Paste in Place, and throw that chunk of geometry right back out into the mix, and then I'm going to move it straight down on the blue axis, and let's see, where does that land? So really that's going to land like, maybe I'm going to come down by 2 inches. Let's call it 3 inches. Now we'll call it 2.5. 2.75. Perfect. That's where I want it. So this is where I want my line lights to land. So I'm going to make this into a group for now. Double click in there and hide the rest of my model. All right, so what I don't need is I really don't need that surface in there right now. I could leave it just because it makes it a little bit easier to select and navigate around. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build in some light placeholders. So here's my midpoint, and I'll just kind of go up like this and make a triangle, and I'm going to double click on that and then make it into a component. And this is going to be a component called, we'll just call it our, well, we could call it a line light. That's fine. Okay, and then under Set Component Axes, you want to make sure that your blue is pointing up. You know, if you needed to, you could hit Set Component Axes, but we're already set by default. Replace selection with component, that's important. I'll choose Create. All right, so this is my line light placeholder. You know, maybe if I was being real technical, and like I can be sometimes, I want that to snap and be kind of a little bit more of a perfect triangle. All right, so now I can use my Move tool, and I'm going to copy that component around my model. So we've got a midpoint over here, and then I've got a midpoint over here. I need to put one of these light placeholders everywhere that I want my line lights to be in Lumion. I'm going to now delete that surface out of there, and then let's back out here. So now you can see that we have this our lights that are in a group, and that's kind of how they're set up there. So let's unlock this and delete. And what we need to do now is take this guy, and we are going to turn this into a component, because right now it's a group. So I'm going to right click and choose Make Component, and then I'm going to right click on this component and choose Change Axes. See, my axes are up here. I need those axes to actually be at the world axes. So when I double click in here now, you can see that this component's axes are set at the world axes. The reason that this is important is that when I bring it into Lumion, I'm going to set this model at 050, and it's going to line up perfectly with the model that I've already imported. So this is why I always import models at 050. It could be 010, it could be 000. Doesn't matter. I like to use 050, but just make sure that when you import your model into Lumion, give it an actual X, Y, and Z, because down the road when you're trying to do something clever, it's going to come into play, makes it much easier. So that's how we set our axes in SketchUp. All right, so now this component here, I can right click on that component and choose Save As. I'm going to save this into my desktop temp folder, and we're going to call this our line lights and choose Save. Okay, so that's it. I could probably just hit delete in SketchUp and we can kill that thing. We're good to go here. So let's hop back over into Lumion, and let me just back out a little bit and take a look at this model. You can see I was goofing around with some fog in the shower and some different things. But what we're going to do is go back into Place Mode on our Object tab, and I want to go to Imports, and we want to import a new model. And you know what? Before I get ahead of myself, we want to create a new layer. We're going to create like a temp layer, because this is going to be an import for this model. It's going to be a throwaway. You know, while we're here, we'll just go ahead and import it. So we're going to import our line lights and choose Open and say OK. And let me just throw that on the roof. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is create a new layer on layer 2. We'll call this one our temp layer. And we're going to add move selection to layer temp. So what that means is that these lights here that we've created, these triangles, are now controlled on that temp layer, like that. All right, now we can go over to our move mode and make sure that we select, let's see, we've got everything deselected, and we're going to select that guy under move mode. Let's see, what are we doing here? Let's turn off our lights and special objects and temp layer. And where's my object here? So we click on our import, and we're going to change this to be 0, 5, and 0. And look what that does. It puts those triangles right down into our cove. All right? So we're looking good. Now, the last object that I placed, the last light that I placed, it was a line light. So what's important here is that if you're doing this tutorial or you're doing this technique or using this technique on your own, make sure that you go into your lighting object and that you have the light that you want to place is selected. Okay, so that's going to be our line light. All right, tap escape because I don't actually want to place it. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to go back into move mode, and I'm going to turn off, just to simplify things, kind of get rid of some of this other stuff here, and that looks good. Makes my selection nice and clean. All right, we're going to go to our context menu, extra, place item on nodes. We're going to place the current light on the nodes. All right, so now when I zoom in here, check this out. We've got a line light placed in here at each one of those placeholders. So every one of those component origins gets a light. So what we can do now is I'm going to go through here. I'm going to make, let's see, we're going to deselect everything, and we're going to move our lights around. So first thing in move mode, let's trash our import. I can tell you that we no longer need our import. So let's see, where's our import here? Yeah, this guy here. Okay, so those are our lights placeholder, and we don't need those anymore. So we trashed it, just hit delete, but we do still have all of our lights in here. Okay, so now what I want to do is go to my context menu, and let's unfilter our lights, click on the selection and do a selection, and we're going to just select all similar. And what that does is it basically selects all of my line lights. I know that the only line lights in my model are the ones I just did a node placement on. All right, then we can go to rotate, and I always forget like heading and pitch and all that thing, but basically pitch, we need this thing to face the ceiling like that. And so we can get that to -90, all right? And you can see that these guys are in good shape. Those are at the right, they're at the right heading. But these guys, if I hit deselect, I'm going to choose this one and hold Control, and I'm going to hit this guy here, and then we're going to choose its heading is going to rotate to a 90-degree heading, like that. Perfect. All right, so now we've got those absolutely at a perfect midpoint in our cove. All right, now the next thing I can do is go to its properties here and adjust its width. So now this guy, and I still have the other one selected too, right? So we're adjusting the width until it just fills in that end corner there. Perfect. And I'm not going to adjust the brightness, yes, we'll do that all together. The width of it, we'll say, I'm sorry, I was already adjusting the width. The length of it, we're going to leave at 0.1, and we'll adjust that possibly for all of them. Okay, now the next thing I'll do is deselect all and select this light as well as this light. Hold Control. All right, so I've got those two lights selected. Perfect. Now we're going to adjust their width. And you can see now that that guy is going to kind of mesh in and fill that cove in perfectly. All right, that feels so much better when it's placed with that mathematic perfection. So, all right, that looks pretty good, pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and do another context menu, hit the selection and select all similar, and that way all of my cove lights are selected. I'll go to my edit properties, and now at this point I'm not going to mess with their width. I think I can mess with their length. You know, the length was probably okay. It was the brightness maybe that is a little aggressive, like that. That's probably pretty cool. I wanted to kind of fill in those corners. So, you know, you got to tinker with like, maybe I could have used a little bit more width on this, but we'll dial the brightness there, and then do a deselect all, and then I'll use these end pieces to kind of fill in that little missing part there, and that's going to be our width like that. It's perfect. Okay. So I can hit deselect all. Let's go back to like our landscape tab just so we're off of there, and check that out. We've got that perfect, pristine cove lighting all in place. That's how I do it. So that way you can use your 3D modeling program to position things and place them with that placeholder, and then in Lumion you're just going to tweak and adjust the rotation, the pitch, and the heading, and all that. So let's hop over into our photo mode, and let's take a look at that same image. That's perfect. So we've got that all settled. And this time we're going to render this same scene. Let's render at 3840 by 2160. So we'll render this for print, and let's see, we'll save this as our number 2 bitmap and say OK. And we'll kind of hang tight while that takes 64 passes, and when it's finished, I'll show you the final product. Okay, so we finished rendering, and let me hop into my temp folder under our number 2 JPEG. And in here you can see, our number 2 bitmap, and you can see, like, again, we've got our transparencies, we've got our cove lighting, just a really solid image. Again, the quality in Lumion 7 has drastically been improved, and the line lights, that's a big deal. So anyways, that's the final image, and a nice little trick on how to place your objects with precision. Keep in mind that I use that same technique for all of my spotlights, really all of my lighting. I want that lighting to be perfect, and I don't want to go in there and pick through my model and place it. I want to do that in SketchUp because I pretty much already have them all built anyway, and it's just a really quick technique. So maybe we'll expand on that technique in another tutorial. But for the time being, catch me in the next tutorial. I'm going to show you another new feature, a context import. So stick with me, and I'll see you in that next tutorial.